President William Ruto has basically done the big thing, and this is showing us the direction that he'd like his government to take by forming the ministries that he'd like to help him run government. And with that, we can really clearly see this is the direction that the Ruto administration will take. Number one. Number two, by naming the various people into the positions of cabinet yesterday, nominating them, and of course they have to be vetted and approved by Parliament before he appoints them formally, he has also told us this is how I'd like to structure the government, and this is how I'd like this government to reflect the face of Kenya and to meet the various thresholds that are set. One threshold, constitutional threshold, is on gender. Not more than 2/3 for any particular gender. Okay? A cabinet has a maximum of 22 seats according to the Constitution, which means not more than 2/3 is a minimum of what? 7. Okay? Now we already have seen the number of women nominated here are 7, and men are not more than 22 minus 7.
15.
So
Okay?
the threshold has been met.
So he's met the threshold.
Yes.
There's that little matter of the promise that had been made during the political campaigns that my government is going to have 50-50 representation of women. Now, had he said my cabinet is going to be 50 or my government is going to be 50%?
Said government.
It is this minor detail here.
He said government.
Yeah, because the expectation for many has been, okay, so he's going to have 50% of cabinet secretaries being women. We are seeing that it's not 50% of cabinet secretaries being women. The question is, has the president kept to his promise or has he broken the promise? Number one.
He said government, unless we want to argue that cabinet is synonymous with the cabinet is synonymous with the government.
Or cabinet is the entirety of government.
Yes.
If not, then there's an opportunity for him to still end up having 50%.
Yes, because if you're talking about promises, I am certain that if you simply get granular on this matter, you will find that many people who are promised certain positions and certain things have received them. Maybe not in the form that they expected. But here's the big but. With every fulfillment of a promise, there'll be a slew of individuals who feel that they were shortchanged.
Yeah.
And I use the words carefully here. They feel they ought to have gotten something which they didn't quite get. But early days yet. This is just a cabinet that has been named.
Yep.
Okay? Of the two high-ranking gentlemen who resigned, we already have an appointee for the IG position.
Yeah.
We still do not have one for DCI. So for those who are disgruntled, who knows? You may be appointed DCI.
Wow, something
Hold
to
your
look forward to,
horses.
yes. You never know. Look, that's true. I think it's important to note that the 2/3 gender rule has been met. That threshold has been met. Now, whether we're going to start picking at grains here on whether the cabinet is what he was referring to, if it is that cabinet that he was referring to, then on that he's broken his promise. If he's talking about government as a whole, then absolutely. There's still a lot in terms of who can make up for particular positions, because as we speak right now, just the cabinet has been named. There is a lot more that can come about, and you never know what he's going to be able to do with that. However, I do think that he's sent a message here on the importance of the gender conversation. And I think one of the ways that he's done that is by retaining this Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action.
Okay.
He could have removed it. He could have merged it or morphed it into something else. But I think that the things that he had been saying in the run-up to the election and then thereafter, in terms of making sure that this gender conversation was mainstreamed, whether it came to government, whether it came to then policy and then implementation, I think he's taken it seriously. This could have become something else. The way in which we've seen the position that Cheluge will sit in leadership over has changed into one that is now focusing clearly on this hustle agenda. We could have seen that this has turned into something else. But if we're focusing on that gender agenda, I do think he's taking this very, very seriously by having this ministry that will then start to focus on some of those issues
And on top of that, there's an advisory role, which is a cabinet level portfolio
on women's rights.
dealing with women rights agency. And he picks lawyer Harriet Chigai to come and occupy that position. So yes, like you're saying, maybe he's signaling the fact that yes, gender is not just a by the way. Gender is a main conversation that needs to happen in this government.
Sure, because
And women rights are going to be discussed. I'm going to have somebody who will be advising the cabinet on things that they need to consider on women rights in every decision that we make.
for sure. And for me, that holds a stronger thread of importance because you could have 12 women appointed to the cabinet. And then does that then signify that there's policy and implementation then when it comes to the gender agenda by virtue of the fact that you have these women sitting in these positions? Who then would mainstream the conversation? Who then would make sure that the things that we're talking about in terms of rights for both genders, in terms of some of the things that we've even discussed over the last week when it comes to sexual rights, when it comes to the gender violence that we've been talking about, when it comes to girl and boy child across the country, when it comes to cultural changes and shifts and rights across the board, will just having these women sit in cabinet positions make sure that conversation is happening? And that's why I think I want to believe, and I would say, a round of applause if that is really the direction where it's like, you know what, this conversation has to be entrenched beyond just having them sit in those positions. It would be fantastic. It would be great. But then deepening it a little bit more and saying it is absolutely important that we finally go beyond this. And I think there where you see those conversations happening is when now you start to influence what will happen in the National Assembly, in the legislation, when it comes to elections, affirmative action still remaining part of that ministry, that we're going forward and voting tomorrow. Are you making these opportunities for women?
And the marginalized and persons with disabilities.
Absolutely. Are we actually getting it done?
If you look at the face of, the distribution of the seats across the country, does it reflect the face of the country? Look at all those names. Of course, we are aware of various headlines. The Standard headline is the Hustler Cabinet. The Nation headline is the Winners and Losers.
Yeah, it's the winners and losers.
The winners and
Ruto's
losers.
first cabinet.
The Star headline is Mount Kenya wins big. Is that it? Yep. The balance of it is that, of course, Mount Kenya, if you look at all the counties of Mount Kenya, if you not just look at Central Kenya, the old Central Kenya, and look at the Mount Kenya, which is East and West, then a majority of the cabinet positions have gone to this particular region. There's nominees from Meru, there's nominees from Embu, from Tharaka Nithi, from Kirinyaga, from Nyeri, of course, the deputy president, from Murang'a, from Kiambu. Each of those counties has a nominee, some two. Now, if you look at the other parts of the country, if you look at the coast, like you said, of the 6 counties of the coast, we have a nominee from Kwale. We have 2 nominees from, or we have a nominee rather into the cabinet from Kilifi. We don't have a nominee from Taita Taveta,
Lamu, Taita Taveta,
or Mombasa. Okay, but there's 2 from that region. If you look at the lower eastern, this is the Ukambani region. We've got how many nominees? 3. Straight into cabinet, and this is tourism and wildlife, Penina Malonza, of course. Alpha Mutua, Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, and then there's the nomination of Monica Juma, who is an advisor to the cabinet.
It's a serious nomination, that one. National Security Advisor is a very serious position.
It's a big one. It's a big one if we are just to mirror it from what we've seen elsewhere, like in America.
Yeah, even here, if you look at the role that particular person plays, it's an extremely important one.
There haven't been one.
We have actually had one.
Who?
I'm trying to remember. I will remember the name and I will tell you.
At cabinet level?
No, advisor level. Yes, we've had one in the Kibaki government. Yes.
So if you look at all this and you see how then the distribution has been, is it reflective of the country? Has the president made sure that what he promised 2 weeks ago when he saw oath of office and made his maiden speech, I will be a president for all. It doesn't matter whether you voted me or you did not vote for me. I will make sure that you feel presence in this government.
It is sound politics to balance these appointments. I mean, throughout the history of this country, if there's one thing that has always happened, we balance them. Now, there are regions who will that will have the optics of having been favored in that you find more people coming from that region. There are those who would argue that those numbers are representatives of the populations that you find in that particular region. See? But there are those who will argue that depending on what it is they feel would be a position that favors them, that they've been neglected. But it doesn't matter how judicious the president is in appointing. There will always be those who will feel left out. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what binary system they use to come up with that configuration. There will always be people who will complain.
There will be that.
I think we also cannot run away from the fact that these appointments then have a heavy political leaning. We can't run away from that. That there were promises. We do not know the conversations that were had in the closed room or whatever. But it is clear that it is clear that there was now compensation for loyalty. People who were, just whichever names you want to pick, Musalia Mudavadi, Aden Dwale, Alice Wahome. I mean, some of these are very clear. Moses Kuria, Kipchumba Murkomen.
Mithika Linturi.
I mean, it is obvious that there was compensation for loyalty here. Now, this does not run away from the fact that these individuals are could be technically sound when it comes to delivering on
the mandate of the ministry.
On the mandate of that particular ministry for which they've been appointed to. It's possible that they also could serve in that capacity. But we cannot run away from the fact that here you will definitely see that promises or at least payback has been made for the loyalty that you handed over during the campaign period and how long you stood by his side. So those who are calling it calling it political appointments are right.
It's reward season.
They're right. You can't run away from that. And and also because there are still others who were in this basket of expectation who said, come on, man, we've been in the trenches. We ran the race. We did the thing. We were also expecting something. That's why we know the cabinet only has 22. You cannot give everybody. Plus, you have to also pander to the expectations of those who are saying, in as much as you want to appoint your friends and those who are your allies, you have to remember that there's a whole nation who is waiting for you to show the representation of the same.
Yeah.
On the inaugural day, you said you were going to make sure that those who worked with you represented the face of the nation. So it was a balancing act, if you ask me. He had to say, look, okay, these guys fought with me. I have to reward them. But at the same time, I've said that I'm a president for all. How am I going to be able to do this? On the other side, for those who may not have gotten into this 22, like we said, there are still other positions within government for which they could get something. They may not be very happy, but it's going to happen anyway. It's either you take that or you stay with what you have.
Now, what do you do?
Yes.
If you look at the first 14 days of the President William Ruto administration, I think one thing that actually stands out is that the man is fulfilling his pledges.
Yes.
His promises to the people. Okay? He promised several people that he worked with as partners in the run for the presidency that, you know what, let's go and win this and then we will work together going forward. We have seen the speakers of the National Assembly and the speakers of the Senate. Those are two leaders of political parties that joined the Kenya Kwanza. We are now seeing the Prime Cabinet Secretary, a leader of a political party. We are seeing the nominee for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, leader of a political party. We are seeing the nominee for Attorney General, leader of a political party. So he's basically saying, look, I reached out to you and asked you, come
And join me.
Join me. Let us work together. He is delivering. He'd have said, after you've won, then, you can come and say, but you guys, I only have 22. I can't put all of you. We can't really fit. He's actually delivering on that promise and saying, I said, we will do it. He looks at those who have worked with him closely for many years. Aden Dwale has worked with him for many years. Reward. Alice Wahome worked with him for many years. Reward. Look at the others. Mithika Linturi worked with him for many years. Reward. Soipan Tuya has worked with him for many years. Reward. Ababu Namwamba joined him. Get something. And then you look at now people like Eliud Owalo, who joined his campaign in the very early
beginning.
stages, also gets into cabinet. So is this saying that William Ruto is kusema na kutenda? He's basically,
I do what I say. I do what I do.
my word is my bond.
Look at someone like Musalia Mudavadi, if you can take a minute here and look at this. Always been with Raila Odinga, at least for the last 10 years. Came out and put forward his candidacy for president, right? As the leader of the ANC, came out and said, look, I want to also be president of this country. Made that announcement, I think it was, thunder? Earthquake.
It was earthquake.
Thank you. And said, look, I want president. And then now made the move to join William Ruto. Did not say anything else beyond William Ruto for the next 9 months.
Yep.
Obviously, he knew that I may not be your deputy president, but where is he today? Has been given a position that in many would argue that is now coloring the lines with that of the deputy president.
It's called deputy president.
I'm telling you, because that's
Without
exactly
security
what
of
it looks
tenure.
like. Yes, that is exactly what it looks like. Patient in his ways, sat and waited and said, okay, we're going to see what we're going to do. The whole 70% of whether he was going to deliver Luya land is still out. The jury is still out on that in terms of whether it was. But regardless, this is where he is today. And waited and said, and Ruto rewarded that. You will not tell me that there is something else apart from a reward of loyalty in the appointment of Musalia Mudavadi as what?
I'll tell you.
Special.
It goes beyond.
Something.
For me, I see more than a reward of loyalty. I see fulfillment of a promise.
Oh yes, of course.
It's not like a reward. It's not like a rewarding. It's like
I said I was going to give you this. Here it is.
I reached out to you, and you accepted, and I made this promise to you, and I'm delivering on my promise. So it is at a point where it's not, let me look at you and say, yeah. You could say reward of loyalty for those who have worked with him for long. Let's say you can say reward for loyalty for Eden Duale. You've been my guy. You have really stood with me. You have worked with me. So you're my man. Kipchumba Murkomen, the same. With this one, it's a political promise. It's a negotiation that took place. So if I join you, if I support you, what do I get? Remember what Dr. Alfred Mutua, we invited him here soon after he joined Kenya Kwanza and dumped the Azimio. And he came and told us, with Azimio, I kept asking questions. So
what am I going? What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? What do we get? What does Maendeleo? Where do we fit? And he was not getting the answers. He got a call from William Ruto. He went and met William Ruto, and Dr. Alfred Mutua told us they got into a vehicle with William Ruto and they drove around Nairobi at night. They went and parked somewhere, and William explained to him, this is my thinking. This is my strategy for winning this election. This is my thinking for running government. And this is where I see you fitting in. And when Alfred was telling us that here, we were looking at him like, okay, yeah, it was just...
Story.
But you can see it now coming full circle, and you can see, okay, all right. He was told, we've worked together, you play this role, we win, I will make sure that you get this.
It colours the man well, and I'm talking about President William Ruto here, in terms of saying what he said he was going to do. Absolutely, and it puts some, stripes on his chest. It does. I think that those who have gotten here, they've obviously been assured of the promise. The promise has been kept to them. It could also be a ray of hope for those whose names may not be here, that there's something you will get as well. That look, he's made his promise, he's not going to leave us out in the cold. There are people who shouted his slogans from the beginning and are not here. But then again, there's an opportunity for them to also appear in government. And we are going with cabinet is not completely government. That's what we're saying. That it's wider than that.
A political individual who has supported a political personage and feels that their contribution has been significant, would they see it from the perspective that we are advancing? Would they see an alternative to a cabinet appointment as adequate?
As anything good enough?
Yes.
Of course, they wouldn't see it as good as. Definitely not.
Because
a CS as opposed to a CAS, for sure.
At the end of the day, whose vision are we discussing? It's the president's.
Yes.
It is him who vied for the presidency. It is him who has the blueprint of what he wants to see done. In addition to what you've said, I would argue that this cabinet looks into the future.
And the future is how far?
Well, the future is 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Because you ask yourself, the areas of this country that are populous, the mountain is populous, Luya land is populous. Of the counties at the coast, Kilifi is populous by far, followed by Mombasa. And if you look at some of the areas like Luanyas that has won, the assumption political would be, it doesn't matter how many people you appoint, the vote will go in a certain direction. So you might as well not even bother. Yes, one appointment is adequate. I'm saying it's the future because if I look at the appointment of Ukambani, it is looking at who the competition will be in 2027. And if I were to take the view that competition would be Kalonzo Musyoka, then you want to start ensuring that that particular competition is dulled from day one. So you front someone in that particular part of the country and you start giving them prominence. Now, we all know how our people gravitate towards the flag, okay? Yes, we do gravitate towards the flag.
The moment a flag comes to your area,
people gravitate towards it. It doesn't matter what people thought, they will gravitate towards it. And if you ask me also, and I look at the mountain, Meru has benefited significantly. Now, again, it shows that this is somebody who wants to cement. The votes he got in Meru are significant. You want to ensure that it stays that way. And the only way that we understand, again, we interpret political appointments is either to entrench a position that you are in or to continue garnering support for it. Now, believe me, 2027 is not far away. Anyone who's a political player will know that the moment you begin this race now, just like December is upon us, okay? 2027 will be upon us before we can say Jack Robinson or whoever, whichever name you want to mention. So a shrewd politician would be looking into the future. But also, if you look at the appointment of cabinet, it also tells you the ministries that the president wants to have a seriously direct say on. Now, you may think it is unusual. No, it is not unusual. The presidents we've had throughout this history. Jomo Kenyatta is so far away, its history. When you talk about it, you might as well be talking about the British East African Company. Let's talk about Moi, that many people who are alive now would remember. One gentleman called Nicholas Biwott was never the vice president, but he was far more powerful than the vice president. Far, far more powerful. So if you take that, you need to ask yourself, whenever you see a cabinet, there may be somebody whose position doesn't create too much dust. But it says a lot. And it says a lot, not just the position, but the relationship that person has with the president. And you will see that when it comes to matters of national interest, you'll have a prime minister, you'll have a vice president, you'll have a deputy president, but people will be going to that individual. Because it is known that that's where
the power is.
Precisely. So you look at the cabinet and you ask yourself, where do you think the power? And that's what I think the business deal was trying to figure out.
Where the power would be.
That's what they're trying to figure out.
Let's look at that after the break and also look at, do the hustlers feel represented in this cabinet? Is this a hustler cabinet for real, for real? What's your take on Dr. William Ruto's cabinet? Would like to take your call, pick your calls from after this break, 0719-012-600, 27 minutes to 9.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
What's your take on Dr. William Ruto's cabinet? Is this hustlers represented in this one? So there's a story in the Standard, page 3, and my friend Dominic Mondi has written this one. It says, President moves to actualize campaign agenda by creating a hustlers ministry. And what Dominic is saying is that he has created the ministry that will deal with the function of matters of small businesses. And this is a ministry for cooperatives, micro, small and medium enterprises development. And he has nominated Chelugui to take over this, to spearhead this ministry. That's all that Dominic has said about that. The rest is background. You know, Ruto rose because of a campaign. The president did not explain how his government will mirror the campaign promises of Mambo ni Hustler. Hustler will be at the table. Hustler will be represented. Hustler this and the other. He didn't explain it. Maybe in subsequent, when he actually releases the structure of government in the name of the paper, he will do that. Maybe he'll explain now this cabinet, this ministry, these are the state departments under it, these are the roles of this ministry, right? And this is what we expect to see out of it. Executive order. Okay, so when he releases the executive order, number 1 or 2, depending on which one it's going to be, then we shall see. Because yesterday he's already said he's sending an executive order for printing, detailing the role of the deputy president's office, and also detailing the role of this office of prime cabinet secretary. Are hustlers represented in this government? We wait to see. But also let's hear what people are saying. Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro. Chukua simu haraka para nje tuingie job.
Twende,
kulingana na hiyo parasa yenye rais aliteua jana. Ile kitu iko ni kwamba wafanyie kazi wa Kenya wote milioni 50 bila mapendeleo. Na wahakikishe kwamba wamedeliver kwa ile asla plan yenye rais alikuwa ameiweka.
Yes.
So yangu tu ni pongezi na kutakia wale ambao waliteuliwa kila laheri.
So umefurahia vile ameteua hii baraza la mawaziri?
Nimefurahia na hiyo list iko sawa.
Okay.
Binge iputisha haraka ndio wafanyie wa Kenya kazi. Tumengoja sana.
Asante. Joel, kabla uende.
Ama namna gani my friend?
Hebu tuambie Joel.
Yes.
Mambo ya Aina Moi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Aina Moi vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
Sasa nani mbunge mpya huko? Ameenda. Karanja in Naivasha.
Good morning, Eric. Do in the city.
Good morning, Karanja.
Yes. Now, we are fully expecting a new faces in this cabinet. Now, look, my friend, we see these old faces. People like Moses Kuria. People like Aden Duale. People like Kidue Kidiki. Surely, he could have given some new faces.
Like who?
So that we can see.
But they're new to cabinet.
The government is very serious.
Moses Kuria has never been in cabinet.
But you see...
Aisha Jumwa has never been in cabinet.
Yes. I am saying this. Are those only the people who have maybe the talent for this?
Karanja, you're saying that there should have been people who you've never seen before, who you are sure have expertise, then should have been nominated to cabinet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it let me see, the new face is one of the people like Johana Dongo, who was given the finance ministry. That one is 100% okay. Okay. Think that, Eric, there was this question that you asked yesterday, around from 10 p.m. maybe to 11 p.m. Yesterday. You are asking some very fundamental question. Look, surprisingly, the AG, the current AG who is coming now should be maybe somebody Jafet Kome, maybe from hiring big-up sources,
From the president himself.
Now, look, what is this in common? Mother Kome, Jafet Kome.
It's a name.
It's a name. It's a
Even
name.
a paid-up conspirator like C.T. Muga has not gone that far.
Karanja, you're from Naivasha.
Yes.
Do of course.
The senator of Nakuru is called Karanja.
Yes, yes.
Are you related?
related? Malize hapo. Musali in Mount Elgon. Musali, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
How are you?
Morning KTN, niko salama sana. Yeah, mimi nimeona hii vile Ruto amefanya. Amefanya kazi mzuri. Okay, these are old guys. Lakini anaelewa hao watu wanaelewa mambo ya bottom up. Na wanataka kutengeneza serikali ile sisi wadogo tutapata pesa. Unaona? So tukipata pesa kama tuko wadogo si tutaenda juu
kabisa.
Si namna hiyo.
Ndio hivyo.
So if these people hata kama wako old, kina Ndwale, kina Mudavadi wako old, lakini wanaelewa vile hii wanaweza tengeneza serikali ile tunaweza pata pesa.
Safi. Sawa Musali. Thank you very much Musali. Have a lovely day.
Asante sana. Wewe ni Musani Kaptama.
Musani. Okay.
Yeah, Musani Kaptama.
Musani Kaptama. Asante. James Nkawangware.
Yes.
Namna gani?
Salama sana.
James, zima radio yako tafadhali. Kama TV. Zima alafu tuzungumze.
Wacha nitoke karibu nayo.
Okay.
Mimi nasema hivi. During the campaign we were expecting those things walituahidi. Down from the common mwananchi, we were expecting to see at least mtu ambaye hajaionekana in the figure of national level. Hata kama wangechukua mtu wa boda moja sema ndio huyu tumechukua from the boda shed. Ya kwamba tuliwaahidi ni bottom up. What do we understand by the bottom up? We have done community development. When we talk about bottom up, we mean those people who are not privileged, they get this opportunity. But the same people ametuwekea pale, you cannot even get near to them. These are the same face since Moi regime mpaka sasa. Hakuna tofauti.
Same
people.
Okay, James.
Since Moi, since
Kibaki to Uhuru.
They are the same people. They are just changing the coats. Wanabadilisha tu matisha.
Sawa, James. Let's hear from others as well. Nyamaya Biwot.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
What do you make of Ruto's cabinet?
Okay, for me, this ministry cabinet ya Ruto amefanya kazi mzuri kabisa. Okay, we see like the Ministry for Sports, Ababu na Mwamba.
Yep.
Ababu na Mwamba ni kijana mdogo, anajua sports venye ziko. Somebody like mythically in Kithure Kindiki. Hao sio watu wameingianga siasa jana, wanajua the bottom up economy approach. Wanajua vizuri kabisa. Wanaelewa kila kitu venye inaendelea. Hakuna mtu mgeni ameingianga kwa hiyo siasa ya Ruto jana.
So they all understand what this government stands for.
This government stands for?
That's what you're saying. They understand what the government stands for and therefore they are in a position to deliver.
Yeah, wanaelewa kila kitu kabisa. Hakuna mtu mgeni ameingianga hapo. Somebody like Mutua. Ameingianga juzi, lakini for now ameshika laini. Amebalance gender. Wamama pia wame represented there. We have 7 of them. So Dr. Ruto amefanya kazi mzuri kabisa. We appreciate.
Thank you, Nyamaya. Let's hear from Malachi in Nairobi. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you, Malachi? What do you make of the cabinet nominees?
The nominee of our president is okay. The only thing that he did.
Malachi, something not right with your line. Let's try maybe a different line. Let's cross over to Lamu. Moses.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
Karibu sana to the show. What do you make of the nominees?
I think naona the president amefanya kazi mzuri. Lakini nikiangalia masho yake haiko the Raina Pida ametupea. Masho yake iko 2027. So let's no one there kuja kupambana na yeye 2027 because if you come to coast he has done away, yani amemalizana na coast. Even in the western region where niliona there was hakupata kula mingi. I think in 2027 amemaliza hiyo hesabu. Naona yeye amekaa chini amefanya hesabu zake na amemalizana naye.
Okay.
So I don't think saa hii vile amefanya they are good people. Lakini Marshall iko 2027 because he has done away with the 2022. so maisha yake iko 2027.
He's projecting
na
ahead.
hiyo 2027 naona amemalizana naye.
Thank you, Moses. James in Kayole.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, mimi naweza sema hivi. Kitu ya kwanza lazima president angetafuta watu ambao wanaelewa bottom up. So angeleta watu from streets so that we say ati ni bottom up. Lazima angetafuta watu ambao wameketi wamekuja na hiyo mpango pamoja. So that they can perform and they can achieve hiyo plan yao ya bottom up. So I congratulate him. Na pia naona ameangalia regional balance, all the whole country. Hakuna mahali hajaguza. So I really support that hiyo appointment. Na ninasema ya kwamba ametafuta timu ambayo inamuelewa na inaelewa bottom up.
Okay.
Na ninaambia hustle wenzangu ya kwamba tuko represented, we represented
kwa hiyo serikali.
Kwa sababu we don't expect that yangeenda kwa street. Tena bottom up mostly si mambo ya viti. Ni mambo ya economical empowerment.
Okay.
So that's where we are looking. Atuangalia activity nini. So hata kama ingepewa watu wa pikipiki na wakose kutusaidia.
Nice.
Bottom up ingekuwa imeingiana.
We hear you. Thank you, James.
So the point is economical empowerment ya hustlers.
Okay. That's James in Kayole. James in Kericho. Hello, James. All right. That line is not good. George Odero in Mombasa.
Hello, morning.
Good morning.
Mimi hata nimefurahi. Sana because once hata mimi nimechaguliwa president nitaangalia vile nitaendesha gurudumu mbele. Hayo mambo ya bottom up ni pesa mfukoni. Kwa hivyo kwa rais mimi I think nitakuwa mjaluo wa kwanza kumsupport sana. Japokuwa hatukupiga kura wengi upande huo. But naona mwelekeo wake si mbaya.
Okay.
Siasa imeisha, tuangalie gurudumu la Kenya, kila mtu aweze kujumuika. Yeah.
Asante sana, George.
Asante.
We're picking a call 0719012600. When you hear these comments and the feedback coming in, it's varied. There are those that are saying, yes, I feel that he has actually factored in many things, including bottom up does not mean that you go and pick people who have zero experience, but by putting people who he campaigned with and who were also championing the bottom up approach, it means that these people understand what the bottom up means and therefore they can deliver this bottom up story. It's about the end.
Exactly. That you get there.
Okay.
That what you're doing right now is having that in perspective. Knowing full well that this is not even the promise. This is the bedrock. This was the bedrock of your campaign. There's nothing else we heard more than the bottom-up economic model to be able to deliver Kenyans from this thing that they're suffering from. We're able to sort things out across board, right? That's what we heard. So the thing is, if it was in the minds of people that suddenly you will see representation of folks who may be on the lower economic scale of things, then taking up jobs in government, perhaps it's a bit of a myopic way of thinking. But it is that you will make sure that you will do whatever you can
to empower that
person through whom you choose to put in a position of government, number one. Number two, the operations that you set up across board. And maybe that's why our friend Dominic wrote that story with the one-line explanation. That is one of the things through which this thing will be delivered.
That's the thinking. The thinking is that you have people who have a common understanding. So let's also look at, he has put in the politicians. Many people have called in and said, I mean, those are names that we've seen before. In 2013, when President stood with his former boss, Uhuru Kenyatta, at the steps of State House, rolled sleeves, red tie, white shirt and everything, they unveiled a cabinet that was just full of people who were not politicians, apart from only two, Najib Balala and Charity Ngilu. Others were completely newbies, in even some of them in government. They just come from private sector into government. over time, you get to hear, okay, so had these people actually worked together, had they understood one another, had they understood the vision that the Ruto pair was coming to government with, if they were not in tandem or working as one machine before they joined government, then it took about 6 months for them just to understand one another. That's time spent. Maybe just looking at these people. If you sit in a room with Alice Wahome, Aden Duale, Aisha Jumwa, Kipchumba Murkomen, Medeka Linturi, and you say bottom up, they'll know.
This is what we are doing.
Tunaenda hivi.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. These are politicians. What I would judge
Politicians don't understand things.
By and large, they understand how to benefit themselves. That is what predominates everything that they do. Until one shows themselves to manifest that ability to actually not just understand. Understanding here has to be demonstrated by what they do. Then you say, this person understands. Yes. It will be the appointment of people like Tim Kipchumba, people who can actually actualize this thinking of bottom up and tell you this is what we are going to do. Not what we think we're going to do. This is what we're going to do.
And it can start
step
tomorrow.
by step by
Beyond
step.
the rhetoric.
Forget the rhetoric. We've heard it. Now, this is how we are going to do it. Now, the manifestations of the ability, again, will be measured by what they do. The people they appoint, the people who are in key positions where these things are actually operationalized. That is what will determine. Up until now, everything is up in the air. They've been appointed. From what we've heard, they mean well. They intend to do these things. We've got that. But now, what will they do?
The engine that that runs this government, so these are just the top policy decision-making people sitting in cabinet. Those that support them, those, like you're saying, would be key. Because those are the ones that translate this whole, rhetoric, and they're coming up with the programs. The way we had Eliud Owalo here saying, this is exactly what we mean. This is how we can approach it. David Ndii telling us the same. This is how we can approach it. Now, if those people are actually going to have a critical, crucial office that feeds this 22 into then delivering, okay.
Yes.
If he misses that, then he misses the whole thing.
Or if they appoint and they're actually willing to let these people do what they're supposed to do in order to actualize these things. Because there's always the element of interference. That's where the individual benefits come in. Okay, then we have a problem. Then we have a really serious problem. You see, if you look at any government that we've had, one of the things that has been fundamental with those who seem to have leapfrogged the development of this country forward is their ability to choose people who can do the job and actually get to do it and are allowed to actually do it, and they move forward. Now, when that happens, we've seen movement, and we've seen very, very good movement. But whether that goodwill actually exists, again, is something we will wait to see. It would be unfair to judge this government and say, we think, yes, we need not be blind to the history of what we've seen and the individuals and their history. We're not blind to that. But we must consider every new day as a new chapter and ask, okay, fine, we have that history, it's a reference point. But what do we have now?
Yeah.
And where do we think we're going to go?
Where is it taking us?
Precisely.
All eyes now shift to Parliament.
Yes.
And the first sign, whether this Parliament is going to be a rubber stamping Parliament or whether this Parliament is going to assert itself, will come here when they vet these 22 ladies and gentlemen.
With Parliament, I do. That's where I deviate from what I've just said.
See, there are questions of integrity. If people, for example, raise issues of integrity, I'm seeing very many comments. Aisha Jumwa has an ongoing case. Medeka Linturi has an ongoing case. The Deputy President has had cases in court, and other people who have been nominated here who have had issues raised about them in the past. If somebody actually comes to Parliament with an objection to any of these nominees, how is Parliament going to treat them? This is where the focus now shifts.
Indeed.
I can actually tell you how
you can tell us.
Treat them. Of course I can tell you.
They'll be upheld and it will go forward.
My friend, all these fellows will go through. Please, one of the things that I think...
It's good to have faith. It might be blind, but it's good to have it.
No. It's not a question of faith. It's a question of how we do our things. Look, our laws are clear. You are innocent until proven guilty. It is not complicated.
It's just like that.
It's just like that. Now, When you're talking about Chapter 6 and the integrity issues, you then have to ask, what's this threshold? You know, this issue of threshold that even took it to the Supreme Court. What is it that someone needs to have done or not done for them to be eligible? Does being in court over an issue immediately remove you from any contestation of in the public realm? If we are not clear, and if even our courts have not declared themselves clearly on that particular matter,
then this is nothing.
Let's not kick a fuss about even if somebody saw whoever it was shooting whoever. If the thing is in court, it hasn't been determined. It's the same courts.
And all avenues exhausted.
That person can stand and that person can be appointed. When they are proven to be guilty, that's a different story.
And they can make noise at that point.
Yes.
Okay.